it's the day one. It's day one of the IMMAF Amateur World Championships over in Abu Dhabi. I reached out to my guests today to just try and get some insight into what's going on because South Africa haven't been at IMMAF World Champs since 2019. So it's like almost a new experience for the South African team had they been there. And we know that the team per se is not there. We have one representative. And the person going to talk to me, chat to me about it, she's on the other side, Cassandra Le Roux, who's, oh, there she goes, she's back. Cassandra, Cass, welcome. Thank you for your time. So lucky to be chatting to you. How's things going? Must be excited for IMMAF World starting probably already started or about to start any moment.
How's Mark? Yeah, it's super exciting. I think they're actually starting at 12 or 11 as far as when I checked the schedule this morning. So it's super exciting for all these athletes. I mean, it's a world-class event. So, you know, you're showcasing your talents amongst the best of the best. So that's really exciting.
So let's talk a little bit about you and why we're chatting to you. So one, you are the head of the Amateur Athletes Commission here in South Africa under the auspices of MMA South Africa. And two, you're a former participant and bronze medalist at the 2018 IMMAF World Amateur Championships. So speaking to someone who's been there, done that, you got that T-shirt, and you also represent the interests of our young amateur athletes here in South Africa. I suppose the opening statement, I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but the news this morning that the UAE shot down 2 ballistic missiles targeting Abu Dhabi this morning. I mean, geez, you're about to go into World Championships and this news of someone trying to shoot ballistic missiles into the very city where you're going to be competing. That's got to be a great way to start.
It's absolutely crazy. When I read it this morning, I was like, it's crazy because you're getting ready to prepare and everything. And all of a sudden, now you've got this destruction. It's like, oh my word, like what happens if they didn't? You've got all these different scenarios running through your head. So it's a distraction that you do not want, especially when you're going to compete. So and then you've also, hopefully they haven't seen it yet, maybe tonight or whenever, but it's tomorrow. What's going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it not? So it's a big distraction.
It's almost the kind of thing that would help, you know, those borderline athletes with their weight cut. And yes, it's a joke. I'm really, really joking because quite honestly, I would actually shit myself if I knew that there were ballistic missiles aimed at the city that we were going to compete in or where I was in at the moment. But yeah, that aside, let's walk away from that. I suppose thankful for.
I would be on the phone with my mom telling her, "Mommy, book me a flight home. I don't want to be here anymore."
Well, let's walk away from that. Let's talk a little bit about the event itself and the build up to the event, particularly from a South African point of view. I mean, the heartbreaking news last week that the team per se was not going to be attending, and then the extraordinarily heartbreaking news from Etienne Reineke's point of view that despite all of his efforts, leaving the country early to try and sort of bypass the UAE 14-day rule, he was declared medically unfit to compete. I first want to start here with you because way back last quarter of last year, national team was announced. You were on that list along with such other notables as Francois Meyer. He's represented us as well. And then suddenly you and him fell off the list when it was updated. Obviously, we can't talk to Francois Meyer, but he's not here. But from your point of view, may I ask, why? I mean, you're suddenly representing the country and next minute, you're gone. Can we ask why?
Yes. So there were a number of factors, so personal reasons, but as well as I felt like there was too little time to be able to get everything ready. You know, it's a stress having to get all your documentation ready to raise all that funds in that short amount of time, and still to have to follow COVID protocols. It's chaotic. And then obviously with everyone kind of red flagging South Africa, you kind of do take that into mind as well. So that was one of the main important reasons why I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough time and everything. And then there was also another aspect of when Coach JP left the team and everything. And then I was like, okay, you know, I've got a lot riding on Worlds. So I can't go to a World Championship and not have someone who knows me thick and thin, like what's my next move, what am I thinking, everything, while I'm performing on a world-class level. I don't feel like prepared or safe. Like I didn't know that no matter what, my cornerman and my coach have my back. And I felt like I wasn't going to have that. So I wasn't going to take a chance and lose something that could possibly make my career. Because honestly, it's a make or break situation.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's something.
No disrespect to the other coaches.
No, I understand. But I mean, I think that's something that a lot of fans, a lot of let's call them mouth breathers, don't really understand when it comes to the international stage, and particularly an IMMAF World Championships, which is fundamentally different from anything they experience at the amateur level, where at the amateur level, you fight one fight at an amateur promotion here in South Africa and it's over. And then you may get a chance, depending on how badly you were injured or how much recovery time you need, you may get another shot a month later, or you may get a shot 3 weeks later, a different promotion. Whereas at a World Championships, you find yourself in a situation where in some of the bigger divisions, you could essentially be fighting 3-4 times just to get to a finals, okay, for a medal placing. So it's what you're saying is absolutely critically important for an athlete. Number one, to trust that the coach is going to try and get them in and out of there as fast as possible, utilizing the skills that they know.
And safely.
As 100%. But I suppose it begs the next question. How much training has been going on, as you understand it, with the national team? Because I see MMA South Africa posted late last week about the fact that the athletes are ready, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you've got coaches that are sort of all over the country, how are those coaches learning about athletes in different provinces and in different parts of the country if they are not regularly watching them, seeing them in fight situations, in training situations, in sparring situations, so that they can, first of all, get used to hearing their voice, and second of all, know the capabilities, what they can and cannot do in terms of their skill limitations, etc. I mean, that's a massive problem that I think we've experienced a number of times in the past.
Absolutely. It's like you say, it's crucial, it's critical. But to answer your question, as far as I know, I think Coach William came up once or twice during the weekends to be able to train with the team, but that's not enough. I mean, in 2018 with Coach JD, the entire team, we trained every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 6 months before we had to prep. So, you know, we were constantly together, constantly in that environment. So it's to go from that to maybe once or twice a week, it does play a big effect and a big role. Because like you said, what happens if you jump in and you can't even hear your corner?
Yeah.
It's super critical. And I don't know if people understand or athletes understand, but I know I learned firsthand what it was like to not be able to hear a cornerman, and you never want to feel like that.
Yeah, I suppose, you
feel like you're stuck.
I mean, I suppose that those are the two aspects that I think most combat sports fans don't seem to understand, is that as much as you know your skill level, as much as you understand your skill level, in the heat of the moment, particularly in the heat of battle, in a fight, you know, having that extra pair of eyes to be able to assist you with something that you can't see about to unfold from your opponent's side, or because maybe you are a little bit gassed, maybe you are thinking something else, that coach, that corner individual is suddenly giving you a little bit of extra advice. So your skill set is one thing, but the ability to suddenly take advantage of something else, that's where the extra pair of eyes comes from. And for most fans, they don't fully understand the power and the necessity of a lot of that when it comes to particularly a World Championships, when you literally are fighting day after day and have got to maintain as much safety and health, because if you are unable to carry on, your opponent next day gets a bye and you're out and they move forward, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. You may know your skill set, but it doesn't mean you know the other person's skill set. So sometimes it's hard to adapt, but if you've got someone helping you and kind of leading the way, it's so much easier to adapt. So much easier to adapt. And obviously, like they to look out for you. So if you do get injured in one of the days, then they'll say, okay, cool, we're going to take this out of the game plan, and then you've got this, we're going to replace it with this. So you've got someone guiding you and helping you. You're not just alone in it.
But I would think more importantly, out of all of that, you know, time spent with someone else develops that very important word, trust. You know, if your coach and your cornerman is going to tell you to for example, you know, go for the arm, or take the back, or for example, look for a specific transition, or to guide you sort of once you get to the end of a round or the beginning of the next round as to what the strategy is now got to be. That's a trust thing, and that only comes with time. And if you're not spending enough time with your national coaches, how do you build that trust? It can't just be, oh, because you're older than me, oh, because someone has put you and made you the coach, I now implicitly trust you. It's your health, it's your brain, it's your body on the line, not theirs.
Absolutely. And trust is the most important part. I mean, you go through a camp and you need to be able to trust your coach. You need to be able to trust your teammates. You also need to be able to trust yourself. So without that, and I think that's where I was feeling like I didn't know what to do. Like, do I put myself on the line and possibly my career? And I don't know if other athletes were also feeling that way, or do you just kind of let it go and try trust in the process and what they've got planned? Is it really in your best interest? Is it in your game plan? So yeah, it's super important.
And I suppose it's even more important, especially if we look at the makeup of that final team that was announced, I think, late November, early December. A very, very young, a very, very inexperienced team on the whole. And it makes me, just from a fan, a media point of view, question the selection criteria. I mean, I know at the time, the number one criteria that was used by MMA South Africa for athletes to qualify to be on the national team or be in the national squad at the time was you needed to have competed at nationals and you need to have placed at nationals. So you needed to be in the top 3 at nationals, correct? And, yeah. And then we saw a couple of people popping in there that hadn't sort of placed at nationals. And I suppose they get that leeway because they put the little caveat in there to say, well, we as MMA South Africa, we as the administrators, we reserve the right to maneuver and add and remove people from the team as we deem fit. I suppose it is because they're the power guys and they want to have the power, so they'll do that. But what does that do for someone like you who puts in the time? And here I'm talking from a personal experience. You put in the time, you put in the effort, you go and train your ass off. You get beaten up, and in your sparring sessions, you come in maybe a little bit sore, you may be a little bit nervous about an injury that you may be carrying. You then fight your way all the way through to the finals. You win gold. You become the national champion again. and then weeks later you find someone that didn't even get through to that stage is sitting on the team with you, and their record is nowhere near yours. I mean, does that make your performance any? I mean, sorry, maybe it's the wrong question, but that's got to surely make the fact that you've put in the time and effort and done what was required null and void because people are just being put on for whatever reason.
It's honestly, it's frustrating. Like, so I've asked this question for the last about 3 years. And it always pisses me off because I've always been threatened, like verbally, like if you're not there, then you can't be on the team. So I've always made sure that I've attended trials, trainings, you know, unless I have like a legitimate excuse or reason for not attending. And I mean, at trials, I had to compete with tonsillitis, and the medic said it was fine and everything. And it pissed me off because I mean, I'm putting my life out on the line, and then I still get told I'm performing like absolute rubbish. And I'm okay, but understand where I'm coming from. Like, I can't breathe. I have to wear a gum guard. Like, it's touching every single part of my mouth, and it's unfair. And then to have to go through all that process, all that training and everything, and then to go through those 3-day wars, because that's not that takes, your body goes through some absolute hell. And then for them to go and put someone else on the team, it's not right. And I've asked countless of times, like, you know, it's not fair, because it makes you, like, honestly, for me, it makes me not want to do it. It makes me not want to be there, because why must I bother to pay out all that money for all the medicals and everything, and then there's a chance that you're still not going to put me up?
You know what's scary was the word that you used, threatened. I suppose I'm not going to go into that because it'll probably get me and take this whole discussion somewhere else. I think that's probably a discussion for another time. And yeah, I think let's just leave it there. I mean,
that'll get me into trouble.
Probably, most definitely, not even probably. Looking at that selection criteria, I actually, just ahead of this, when you agreed to come and chat to me, I went onto the MMASA website just to go and try and find out where the information is in terms of the criteria, or, you know, even information on the MMASA website in terms of who the team was and what the selection panel criteria was, who the selection panel actually is. And it's mind-blowing. MMA website is so outdated. None of that information exists. Hardly any gyms are on that. I think there's maybe 25, 26 gyms on that. From an athlete representation point of view, your role, all the various commissions that have happened, been fallen away, you know, all that kind of stuff, none of that information is there. So, you know, from an administrative point of view, for anyone that wants to learn about the sport and understand where it's going, don't go to the website, because the website is utter rubbish. It has nothing on it. It's so outdated. It still has the previous chairman or president on there. It hasn't even been updated to the latest committee anyway. But you know, just from trying to understand.
I have brought it up.
Okay.
I have brought it up. I mean, the committee and myself, we all had a chat about it, and it came back down to also at, I think it was at essays or at the trials, there was a whole lot of rule sets that people also didn't understand. So, you know, there was that's one of the biggest things. So we did chat about it. Clearly nothing's been done, so maybe I need to push them forward. I've given them a lot of gray hairs, so hopefully we'll be able to kind of, you know, get things back into the swing. But at the moment, my priority is making sure that all the athletes are okay and safe, making sure that they, you know, that they're going through like a good process, not through a process that's really difficult.
Yeah, and I suppose that is the big thing. I think I've spoken about it on many times, many occasions. I've been very vocal about it. The sport is about the athletes. It's about you. It's about the youngsters that are coming through. It's about giving them a great experience as they start through this, so that they actually choose to continue. I mean, you are one of those athletes, as I have watched your career sort of start developing, that you literally haven't been able to get your career going simply because there's been virtually zero development of young female fighters in this country. You last fought, wow, when was it? Back 2018, 2019? That's your last competitive fight. I'm talking before nationals of this year.
Yeah.
Okay. How on earth are we meant to be making sure that our athletes are prepared to face the best amateurs in the world? And you know what it's like. These guys are arriving, these gals and girls are arriving at nationals with 15, 20, in some instances, 30 plus amateur fights. And here we've got a young guy going out, competing on Wednesday, Mohammed Mull. He's the only South African representative at the Worlds this year. According to My Next Match, which is the official registration platform but the official registration platform for IMMAF Worlds, he has a fight record of 1-0. Now, man alive, that scares me, because it scares me on two levels. One, he hasn't only fought once. Okay, I know that as for a fact. But if, according to them, the official record and the information that South African MMA is sending across, he is a developmental fighter. Please do not tell me that based on a 1-0 record, he is ready to take on the world's best. He cannot be.
No. And the sad part is that he's not the only one. It's happened a few times and everything. It's crazy. You sit and you think you have one fight, two fights, three fights. I'm not too sure who updates My Next Match, if it's IMMAF themselves or if you kind of have to put it in. But besides that, you're going up against some people where there was one in 2019. The kid wasn't even 20 and he had 54 fights. And you have someone that's had 4 or 5 fights, is that going up against someone like that? It's crazy. You can't even compare it. You're going from someone that's had so much experience to someone who's kind of just starting out. You don't get motivated from that. You constantly have that. He's better than me. He's had more experience, more fights. He's been in different scenarios and in worst case scenarios, whereas I haven't really been in that.
Yeah, and I think fighting is unfortunately that space where you can train as much as you like, you can spar as much as you like, but it's only when that cage door gets locked behind you that you start separating, real from wannabes, and it's experience. Like you say, someone that's done 30, 40, 50 fights, as you mentioned, they've had hours and hours of experience, behind a locked cage door. Whereas we have consistently seen youngsters over to a world championship level who do not compare. And if we just look back at 2018, I think we came back with a couple of bronzes. It was yourself, it was Delano, it was Julia Pleikis came back with a couple of bronze. I don't think there was...
There's 4 of us.
Yeah. And then, next year, 2019, which was the last time we competed at IMMAF World Champs, barring Francois, every single one of our team bowed out after their first bout. Okay. And Francois, very unlucky to get that split decision, that majority decision loss. But the reality is we have plummeted in the IMMAF rankings. We once sat very close to the top as a nation. Obviously, at that point, MMA was still very much developing around the world. IMMAF weren't trying to be, the biggest guys in the yard. And now all of a sudden we sit very, very low amongst the IMMAF nations. We've got one athlete representing ourselves. And yes, we understand the last 2 years there hasn't been events. This event is actually a flow over from last year, which is actually the 2021 World Championships, now in 2022. But I want to get your thoughts on the divisions. I mean, I'm looking at the 32 divisions on my next match for the events that are going to take place starting today. And not a single division is full. Not one.
It's sad. And I mean, when I checked my next match last week, there was over 500 athletes. I think it was like 549 or something. And when I went on over the weekend, it was back down to 400, like just over 400. And you sit there and you're like, okay, what's going on? Like, that's not everyone is red flagged into Abu Dhabi. But you sit there and you think, like, what's going on? And then I saw some of the guys didn't make weight this morning either. And that's also a big factor. You pay all that money to go there, and then, something happens or whatever, and you don't make weight. Okay, they are very strict with their weight, but then something's not right.
Yeah. No.
So
I fully agree. I mean, I'm looking at these divisions, and I don't understand IMMAF's thinking, because, I look at the World Championships. World Championships to me should, a definition of a World Championships is me pitting myself and my skills against the very best, okay, and coming out tops against them. I look at the female divisions, of which there are only 12. 5 of those divisions have 4 or less athletes participating, which basically means before they even, and if they made weight, stepped onto the scale to weigh in this morning, all 4 athletes are guaranteed a medal, and they haven't had to put their gloves on yet. Now, in my mind, how are you showcasing the best female athletes in their division when all 4 of them are already guaranteed medals? Now it's a simple case. One fight will determine whether it's a bronze or a gold. That's it. Similarly, if we look at staying with the female division, 50% of the divisions in the female divisions have six or less athletes, okay? And not a single division in all the female categories, okay, has 50% capacity. And we need to understand, for those that don't understand and don't know that are listening to this, there's a maximum of 32 athletes allowed in every single division, of which each country can only send 2 in a given weight division. So when you don't even have 17 athletes, 16 athletes in a division in the entire female category, I mean, we understand women's MMA is still growing. We understand the developmental challenges. Cass, you are a product of the developmental challenges of building female MMA in this country. But let me ask you this. Have you earned your medal if you step into a division, fight once, and suddenly get a gold? I mean, can you honestly say you're a true world champion?
So you can take it 2 ways. You can either take it like, yeah, cool, I'm coming up with a medal, I'm one of the best in the world. Or you can take it as, like, I didn't feel like I got to showcase my talents enough. I didn't feel like I got to go up against the best of the best. So it depends on the type of person you are. Like, if you're fighting your way for that medal, then it's a different story. Then there's so much more, like, you respect yourself so much more. The confidence that you gain is completely different compared to maybe just fighting half a round, 2 rounds, just to be able to get a medal.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point. At the same time, we do need to understand that, for example, we're living in COVID times. So, your point of well over 500, now down to 421, which is the exact number this morning. COVID is definitely going to have an impact. And while the craziness continues around COVID and COVID protocols, it's going to impact sport all over the world. But I think when it comes to female MMA, possibly IMMAF needs to relax the maximum team entries for the female side of things, so that at least, you have more athletes participating. Because, for example, if I look right now, the female junior atom weight category, now that's the 47.6 kilograms or less, or 105 pounds or less.
Yeah.
There are two athletes. So one of them gets gold, one of them gets silver. They fight once, and one of them can call herself a world champion. Now, my first thought on that is I'm calling bullshit on it, because how can you be a world champion when you fight one person? But the back of my mind, knowing the sport, I do understand that many of, and just looking, while we're talking, just looking at the athletes, the two athletes in the countries that come from in that category is I think Russia and Kazakhstan are the two athletes that are being represented. Now, I know from a Russian point of view, they go through thousands of athletes through their trials. So
they've got the biggest team.
Listen, I understand that, but Russia has prioritized sport. It is state, state sponsored. Maybe not always a good thing, but a good thing from the perspective that they pay for the athletes to get to these events. I mean, I don't know of one athlete in this country that's ever represented South Africa that MMASA has assisted, fundraised for, got money to go over there. Every single athlete that's gone over there has had to pay money themselves. Now, the arguments I'm making here is, why couldn't, because the female categories are so light, why couldn't the nations that are participating bring 3 athletes just to bump it up? Then at least we have something to watch. But now, watching the junior atomweight competition, it's like, I honestly cannot buy into the fact that one of those ladies should be justifiably called the best junior atomweight in the world when there's only 2 of them represented.
Yeah, I feel you. I think COVID plays a big part, because back in 2018 and 2019, there was 600, 700 athletes, and everybody had at least 2 or 3 fights, even the smaller weight categories. So I don't know if it is COVID or what it is, but the categories have shrunk down a lot. And for a female it's a chance. You got to pay all that money to go that side, and then it's like you go there for 1 or 2 fights. Like, if I'm going there, I gotta make sure I'm going there for 4 or 5 fights.
Let's talk about Muhammad. Muhammad Mull, he is South Africa's only representative at the IMMAF World Championships. It was announced over the course of the weekend that he had safely arrived in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. His division, he has 7 athletes in the junior lightweight division. And funny enough, looking at the men's divisions, it's all the heavyweights that are the smallest. And we know that from historical experience that the heavyweights in the men, particularly the super heavyweight and the light heavyweight divisions, and now the juniors, it's all the junior heavy divisions that are the smallest. He's got 7 athletes. His first fight is Wednesday. Brackets have been announced. But looking at 7 athletes, he essentially wins 1 fight, his first fight, and he's guaranteed a medal. Okay? He's guaranteed a bronze. That's that argument again. But I suppose the discussion around Muhammad is multifaceted. One, he must have done what Etienne Reyniker did. He must have left the country long before to try and bypass the UAE 14-day rule. He's successfully done that. I haven't seen his weigh-in results, but I haven't seen anything negative. So I'm assuming he came through that unscathed. And then also the news that because he has no corner, no coaches are there from the South African team. The news that Brian Ebersol, who is the Australian coach, he will be in his corner for that first bout. I mean, Cass, that comes back to the discussion you were talking about earlier. I mean, Brian knows nothing about Muhammad, and now Brian has to assist this young man, while at the same time knowing in the back of his mind he's got national Australian duties to perform. I mean, you got to take your hat off to Muhammad for taking on this challenge, but wow, it is a daunting challenge.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, it's amazing, but it's kind of stupid at the same time. It's kind of like showing up to an airport with all your luggage and documentation, but without a plane ticket. That one important factor that you need that you don't have. So I mean, it's also a challenge for Brian to take it on, and hats off to him for stepping up. Shows you that he's really keen on the athletes and everything. But it's also, you're not gonna. Everyone says go to Worlds, go get the experience. You're not gonna pay all that money to go for experience. That's the worst thing someone's ever told me. Like, go get the experience.
Listen, if
he was showing up to a local event without a corner or anything, then I would say, cool, that dude's committed and like he's dedicated to what he wants to do. But to a world championship, that's a little bit different. You're not just on a platform where, like, a small platform. It's a big platform. You've got international, professional, different agencies and organizations watching you. And if you have one bad performance, they kind of scratch you off and they don't look at you again.
Well, it's a very interesting point that you raised there, Cass, because we look at some recent UFC professional appointments that have come out of the amateur ranks. I mean, Muhammad Mokaev is probably a classic example. I think he's currently sitting at 30-0. So you get a situation where you've got a multiple time world champion suddenly getting a professional contract at arguably the best promotion on the planet, professional promotion on the planet. And I suppose for a lot of young athletes, they look at that and they go, this could be my chance, because they're not able to get it. They're struggling to be able to, go professional, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a whole bunch of arguments and reasons and stuff we could talk about behind that. But the discussion around being selected as the best in the country and then using that opportunity to go and get experience is mind-blowing. Because surely if you're the best in the country, your federation should be sending you over there with medal ambitions, not experiential ambitions. And that is frightening for young athletes who have a handful of fights, under their belt from an experiential point of view.
Absolutely. I mean, irrespective, you go in there, even if you're going with the mindset of I'm coming back with the medal, you're still getting the experience. But you don't want to go there to get the experience.
Yeah. Cass, and then finally,
it's an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience, but you don't want to pay all that money for nothing.
Well, is it? So let me ask you this. Looking back at the 2019 team, I know a lot of those guys went across for experience. I mean, it was stated then. So let me ask you this. All but one was knocked out in the first round. What experience did they pick up then for the next 4 days, sitting at the side of the cage, watching other people pick up experience? What experience are you getting?
The only thing that you can pick up is just how people move, how they train, how they fight and everything, how the different countries perform. Obviously, every country has their own different thing, but it's also to see the level. It kind of clicks in a way, like I'm not on the same level as them, or okay, like I'm kind of halfway there. It's kind of gives you that push to work harder. And I think a lot of people, they work as hard as what they can, but they don't push themselves to be on that international level, which is sad.
Yeah, it is sad, but I think as South Africans, we have proven that we can compete on some of the highest international levels. Just look at a number of our pros, and we can talk Don Madge, we can talk Dricus du Plessis, I'm talking about South African-based athletes. I'm not necessarily saying that they're South African, but South African-based athletes. We look at the likes of Dolce. We look at all of those guys. They train here, they're based here, and they're learning their skill sets here, and then they're taking that obviously onto the international stage. So it's clear that if our young up-and-coming amateurs are interacting with these top pros, they're picking up training experience. But as we've said before, there's no better experience than solid minutes behind a locked cage door against guys that are of a similar or better skill set than you for you to go to the next level, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you take Rudy Roots, he came back with a gold medal, but look at the hours and everything that he put in. Like that's kind of someone that you need especially on the SA team, even just to train and everything. He's gone through the process. He's gone through coming back with a medal. He's gone through everything. You kind of need someone like that, like an athlete, to be able to say, right, this is what you're going to expect. This is, this is the process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose that's the one thing a conversation like this will always discount, and it'll always discount the pedigree of any given athlete. I mean, Rudy Roots is a classic example. He is a national wrestling champion, multiple-time national wrestling champion here in South Africa. His father comes from an exceptional pedigree of wrestlers, and everything about him is a solid sort of wrestling foundation. So for him to take the next step, it was logical. We obviously don't know the backgrounds of a lot of the other athletes. Muhammad, for one, yes, we know he's into boxing and jits and the like, but what pedigree, what foundation does he have, for us to go in and honestly believe that he has what it takes to take on some of the best in the world who have, like you said before, 20, 30, up to 50 fight experience. But we wish him all the best. I absolutely hope he's going to fly the flag.
Absolutely.
I mean, last thing
we'll
from
be
you.
Supporting him.
Last thing from you. You've been there, you've done that, you've got the T-shirt. Your thoughts, your advice to the likes of Muhammad from a South African point of view, and to all the athletes that, like you said, are going to step into the cage 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. What would be your advice to them based on your experience there at a World Championships?
So if you had asked me this a couple of years ago, it would have been completely different. But every time someone asks me that, I get taken back to, I think it was 2019, where we were in a training camp for like a Gauteng team. And we were all sitting on the mat, and I think it was myself and Francois who were trying to explain, what they're going to go through. And he said something that stuck with me ever since. And he said, there's 32 athletes, 31 other, excluding yourself, that are all going there for the exact same thing. It's all about who wants it the most. So that meaning you got to trust your entire process, your entire camp, your entire journey. You got to make sure that you're putting everything in to be able to come out with that gold. But otherwise, you just got to trust the journey, your coaches, and you have to enjoy it. Enjoy the entire journey. Otherwise, there's no you shouldn't be doing it.
Okay, it's very, 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 very sage advice from Francois Meyer that, as you said, has stuck with you ever since. I think I've got to reach out to Francois, catch up with him, and see what he's been up to and where he is at the moment. But Cass, has been great catching up, picking your brain. I know this is a very contentious topic. It is something that, could get you in a lot of trouble, could get me in a lot of trouble because of various egos and all that kind of stuff around the sport in this country. Thanks for giving your thoughts on the upcoming World Champs. All the best to Muhammad, and all the best for your training going ahead. Maybe we catch up soon and you let us know what it is that you're doing these days. But I'm looking forward to that follow-up conversation. But let's hope all the athletes that are in Abu Dhabi right now are going to give us a super show, and we can all watch it on IMMAF TV. It's available right there. So get over there, watch it, and give them your support.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.